Welcome, everybody. Very delighted to welcome you to this webinar organized and hosted by the Mental Wellness Initiative of the Global Wellness Institute. And our Mental Wellness Initiative member, Lara Tatrielli, is also the chair of the Global Wellness Institute's Wellness Architecture and Design Initiative, along with her co-presenter, Valentina Tereda, who's in Dubai, and Alina Hernandez, my co-chair of the Mental Wellness Initiative, is here as well, and we'll be moderating questions at the end if we have time for those. Welcome to our guests who are here, and we won't take any more time, and we'll hand over immediately to Lara and Valentina. Thank you both very much.
Okay, thank you. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, great. I'm just going to put this up here. Okay, wonderful. So today, thank you very much. And today we're going to talk about designing for mental wellness and how the built environment can impact our mental wellness. Okay, imagine living and working in spaces that are not only inspire beauty, but also thoughtfully crafted to enhance our mental, physical, and emotional well-being. Wellness architecture and design creates environments that actively support, our mental, physical, and social well-being. By integrating a regenerative design practices, we can reduce environmental impact while fostering spaces that alleviate stress, improve mental clarity, and encourage social connection and overall well-being. It is a human-centered regenerative design approach that promotes health and wellness outcomes for people, the built environment, and for nature. The Wellness Architecture Design Initiative is our group, which aims to raise awareness and provide pathways to the implementation of this interdisciplinary design approach, which delivers on health, sustainability, economic, and spiritual outcomes for existing and future designs and environments. So these are our members. Our members are architects, designers, developers, and investors, and hail from all over the world. Throughout history, architecture and design have reflected our society, our culture, our values, and our environments. Wellness architecture and design shapes our experiences and interactions and impacts us on the various dimensions of wellness, including our mental well-being. When we look at mental wellness in the built environment, we can break it down into three categories of cognitive, emotional, and spiritual wellness. Cognitive wellness are spaces that enhance clarity, focus, productivity, and allow us to engage meaningfully with the world around us. Emotional wellness are environments that nurture emotional connection, comfort, and resilience, supporting us in self-expression and fulfilling relationships. Designing spaces that inspire a deep sense of connection, expansion, and purpose are what we aim for in spiritual wellness. When we look to design for mental wellness, there are numerous principles that we can incorporate. And when we start a project, we ask ourselves, how can we incorporate each of these some of these design principles to improve health and well-being of the planet? And it really starts with defining a purpose, having a purpose-driven project, which is not just about the financial outcomes, but actually is a holistic impact, positive impact for humans and the planet and all of the stakeholders and occupants. So that means it goes kind of beyond sustainability to social connection with inclusive and flexible spaces, biophilic design, emotive sound, green spaces, bringing in ancient wisdom and blending that with modern contemporary design principles, and so forth. Really, we look at these elements to create and build a built environment that support our physical, social, and mental well-being. on cognitive, emotional, and spiritual levels. So one example is incorporating nature and bringing that into the interior scale, as you can see. Another is enhancing human connections and looking to it also our origins and seeing what kind of retail environments can work. Another is looking at sacred forms of nature and how can we that inspire architectural shapes and forms to create awe-inspiring feelings.
And when it comes to designing for mental wellness, what's really, really important is to look at the air quality and the challenges that we're having today, because everything is interconnected when it comes to our health. And there is numerous studies that relate, the effects of air pollution in our homes, in our offices, in all our buildings to our mental health. One neuroscientist that we're quoting here is Dr. Tara Swart, which basically researches and talks about how certain chemicals and pollutants that are found in our indoor environments, they affect the levels of certain proteins in our brain. And these proteins are responsible for regulating our mood and regulating our cognitive functions as well. They also repair our brain cells. So it's very, very important that as architects and interior designers, we really look at enhancing indoor air quality through different means, because having a healthy indoor environment is absolutely essential for mental wellness. And can anyone guess what these two images have in common if someone would like to try it?
It's cluttered. Everything is very cluttered. There's no space.
Yes, also, absolutely. It's the clutter, and it's really the type of ingredients. The food that you see on the left side on the shelves, this is food that is basically 99% made of artificial man-made chemicals. So there is almost nothing natural in this pre-packaged food that we found in the supermarket. And on the right side, it's a building. It's a conventional type of building in our cities that we find. And these two share very similar type of ingredients. And these buildings are built with 99% of, chemical, man-made, artificial materials that are as unhealthy as the food that, as this, what we call junk food, so unhealthy food that we eat. And there is a huge focus on, trying to eat organic food and natural food because we want to nourish our body. There is also a huge focus on our, how we move our body, exercise to keep us active. But there is very, very little to no awareness on, the health of our built environment and the homes and the buildings we design and build. We have about over actually 80,000 chemicals in the construction industry. These chemicals are found in our interior materials and finishes, in architectural materials. And if we had to put, a label on our buildings today, these would be, 99% chemicals, preservatives, and toxic ingredients, and 1% of natural organic ones. And we really need to start looking at, our environments, what we surround ourselves with, and we need to start questioning, how do we improve the health of our indoor environment, and how do we really stop building with only chemically made materials. because if we put healthy food like vegetable and fruits in our body, we definitely know that we feel better. And of course, they need to be organic without pesticides and so on, not any vegetables and fruits. And in the same way, if we focus on completely natural, organic, non-toxic, and recyclable as well materials, because not only we need to care for our body and our mental wellness, but also we need to care for the earth. Everything that is synthetic, everything that is chemically made, it's really not possible for it to go back to the earth, which means that it's going to produce waste. So like we go back to the earth, we want our buildings, we want to leave something that can be reintegrated in the cycle of nature to really bring health to our planet and to ourselves as well. And you might be wondering, how did we get here? How did we get to build, so many unhealthy buildings? Well, as humans, we have spent 99% of our time on Earth in nature. Only in the past 200 years, we have started living in cities. And during the Industrial Revolution, what happened is that a lot of people started moving and living nearby factories for work. And these very dense and unhealthy areas started developing around the factories. And all of these led to disease and a lot of illnesses in the population. So architects and government, they really started looking at how to fix these very degenerative, unsanitary conditions. And they started focusing on sanitization and function when it comes to building homes for people and building buildings. And then when the world wars finished and ended, there were a huge amount of companies that were providing chemicals for the armies for the war that, had nothing to do with these chemicals. And they found out that these chemicals were very good to be used in construction in that period, because they would allow people to build houses very, very fast, because there was a huge demand for houses after the war. But also they would allow to completely isolate the people inside their homes from the external environment, which at the time was full of disease. And all of these chemicals that were brought in during these years, so between, the Industrial Revolution and the 40s and the 50s, they have remained. And as a consequence, after less than 100 years, we are living still in buildings that are as if wrapped in a plastic bag, you can imagine, and we're completely isolated from the outside. Our buildings are very, very tight when it comes to air. They keep the air inside, and hence all the chemicals that we use to build inside, they remain inside. They just do not escape. And this is exactly what happened. And that's why we need to look into a more regenerative approach when it comes to architecture and design. And Lara, if you could go next, please. And this is why years ago, some certifications for sustainability were introduced in the construction industry. You might be familiar with the LEED and the WELL and the FitWell. These are the most common and the most used. And these certifications, basically, they help companies and people to build sustainable buildings that are healthier. They mainly look into energy efficiency. And with these certifications, you can really achieve technically healthy buildings, but not always you can achieve that mental wellness, because in the next slide, Lara, in these type of certifications, they are based on global standards. So they're great because they push manufacturers to create better products in that sense, but at the same time, they're not contextualized. And we all know how, each country has different region, different town, with different materials, different nature, different culture. And this is not taken into account in the certification. So some of these buildings, not all of them, they might be healthy, but then they do not really carry that health when it comes to mental wellness, and they're not spiritually appealing. So the reason why it's even more important to look into blending ancient wisdom and contemporary sciences, looking for an approach that is truly integrative, that goes beyond certification, and that really combines what is that knowledge that we have, you know, from thousands of years as humans on Earth when it comes to regenerative practices, when it comes to the integration of ancient sciences like classical feng shui or Vastu or similar, sacred geometry, land energy sciences. This is all ancient ways of designing and building that would create spaces that really resonate, that make us naturally feel good because they tap into the geometries of nature. And then very important, integrating with contemporary sciences. So building biology, for example, is a science that was born in the 60s through environmental doctors and scientists that started studying the health effects of the building materials and of our built environment on our health and the earth health. And that includes the electromagnetic fields mitigation as well, all the frequencies from all the 4G, 5G antennas and Wi-Fi that have started, you know, entering our indoor environments as well. So to demonstrate some of these, you know, wellness architecture and design approach, we have prepared just a few projects to show you that we're working on. So one of them is the Six Senses Dubai Marina residences in Dubai. In this project, well, there's a lot of special things. The one very special is the integration of sacred geometry. So this tower is like 122 floors. So people will be living at very, very far away from the ground. And we really wanted to make sure that this building is grounded to the energy of the earth, and that energy is carried through and through the integration of crystals and sacred geometry strategies throughout the building. We are aiming to create, you know, the chakra of this building, to make it live, to make it really feel, make people feel really good, and have these different layers of energetic planes into the buildings that will help them to just be well in this building. Then, of course, building biology, so very natural organic materials, environmental toxin mitigation, so very, very, you know, beyond what is required from the certifications. A lot of them, of course, sourced locally, and classical feng shui with the balance of the five elements in all the public areas. There is a lot of floors for spas and clinic wellness area, sound healing room, meditation room, and then, of course, all the residences. The next project is a private wellness resort. In here, also sacred geometry, very special, because in this case, we really aimed to bring that energy that we feel when we enter the very old ancient temples. So that is the really special thing about this private resort. Of course, the materials are natural, and what's special about this is that we're using the soil that we are digging to build this building and turning it into natural plaster and clay, so that really that building will be breathing and it will feel so natural, and the actual land will become part of the building. And then classical feng shui as well, which was especially developed with the layout arrangement. So you see that the layout is slightly rotated compared to the plot, and that's because of certain alignments that we followed. And another project is a Waldorf school. I don't know if you're familiar with the Steiner system, but it's an alternative, not an alternative, it's actually a very old way of teaching that is now, that has been always there, actually, but in Dubai, this is the first school with Waldorf. So we have harmonized all of these buildings on the land with sacred geometry, land energy sciences. The idea was really give that feeling of awe to the children when they enter the class, when they walk around using these shapes and forms. And of course, building biology is always there. And in this case, we have also shielded completely all the classes from electromagnetic fields mitigation, because there is quite a lot of 4G and 5G antennas in this area. So we wanted to make sure that the kids are protected from these frequencies, because they really need to be able to connect to natural frequencies more. And our environment are becoming super polluted with these. So these are the some of the strategies implemented.
Okay, so the last example is 5 Elements, which is a retreat in Bali. This project was being designed and planned during around 2000, 2008, and 2009. So the project is around 14, 15 years ago. And it was planned and designed at a moment on the island where we were seeing, let's say, the next phase of mass tourism and the construction that goes along with it, which is quite unhealthy, a lot of kind of a deviation away from traditional building and any kind of inspiration into kind of gigantic concrete, condotels and, 1,000-room type of things. So our goal was to define a new style of luxury that was rooted in ancient traditions and blended with modern-day sustainability and wellness solutions. The first and foremost, most important thing that I think got us on the best track was that we were entirely purpose-driven, and everybody on the design team and then into operations really understood we are building something with healing in mind, with healing intentions. We were very strong with the vision, mission, and also a human-centered wellness culture, which was refined over time, focusing on personal wellness, social harmony, and net positive impact. So we blended ancient wisdom, land energy sciences, and sacred geometry. One of the main guiding philosophies in the design process was called Trihita Karana, which is an ancient Balinese philosophy, which means living in harmony among spirit, human, and the environment. So that's really what wellness architecture and design is aiming to do, is kind of strike that balance with various strategies and initiatives. Other traditional planning and architectural methods were implemented and reinterpreted for sustainability and wellness. We also used a land healer to dowse and look for water sources, and we identified and built and activated an energy vortex, as you see here on the left, this sacred space, which served as a healing circle and a meditation circle, but also as an energetic vortex, which was healing the land and the surrounding land as well. We used, in terms of sacred geometry, the golden ratio Fibonacci spiral, and also nature-inspired, nature-inspired design. So as you can see, if we look at this top one, the roof line of our Shakti dining room, it was the symbol of the banana leaf. And the banana leaf is the symbol of food in Balinese culture. Traditionally, food was cooked and wrapped in and eaten out of the banana leaf. And then if you look below, the bamboo structure here is based on the sacred spiral. Building biology and biophilia. So locally sourced non-toxic materials and renewable bamboo and thatch roofing, and as well as recycled timbers were used to create a healthy and sustainable site. Green roofs with passive cooling strategies to maximize the ventilation enabled, thermal comfort in the healing journey and eliminated the need for AC. So energy reduction. So if we look here again at the Shakti dining room, we use the natural power of the river, which on the back of the dining room is this picture on the left, where the air would come up, the cool air from the river would come up and circulate through the Shakti dining room. There was also a pond on the interior, and then a pond was designed here in the front on this photo. In addition, this structure has a double roof system, which is a traditional Balinese design that allows heat to rise and escape. So again, providing a comfortable environment. Natural light exposure, aligning with circadian rhythm, enhancing positive mental states. We tried to maximize as much as we could there. We also created a conservation zone behind all the sleeping suites and the healing suites as well, which allowed for jungle bathing, like forest bathing, but jungle bathing, which gave people access not only to the nature around, but also for mindful reflection. As you can see in this bottom image here, the river is coming up.
Lotta, I'm
Yes.
wondering, because we're coming up to less than 5 minutes.
Okay.
If
I'm
you
going to breeze
wanted
through
to,
them.
yeah, if you
Okay.
wanted to just wrap it up, maybe we have time for 1 or 2 questions.
Okay. So basically there were flexible meeting spaces, immersive landscapes. So not only looking at landscape, but really the feeling of being inside and being part of that macrocosm. And also sensible technology was used. Basically, designing for wellness presents a new paradigm shaping our cultural identity. By designing with wellness in mind, we're not just creating beautiful functional spaces, but we're fostering environments that nurture resilience, reduce stress, and enhance our capacity for joy and connection. Our role as architects, designers, and developers is to create spaces where society can thrive, spaces which elevate and inspire the wellness of humanity and the planet. Thank you.
Wow, Lotta, thank you so much. This is so impressive. I mean, we can tell by just the sheer thoughtfulness and comprehensiveness of your work, the detail and truly the immense work that's gone behind all of this. I got my big takeaway, and I'm wondering if anybody else has a question, and I'll lead in with my takeaway, is that I love the way that you were able to weave a parallel between the development of human health in postmodern era and what's happened in the built environment, and particularly with drawing the connection between PFAS, or the forever chemicals, as we know, and how we have to be able to understand that both in what we're eating, what we're consuming, and that we are consuming the built environment, because de facto we're coming into contact with all the materiality. If someone doesn't else have a question, I do have a question, and my question for you is the following. How is it that you would recommend to anybody on this call that they would approach a design brief when they might be looking at a new development? Because these are always very tricky, where an owner-operator might fall in love with a particular architect or form, but perhaps are missing some of these key pieces that you so articulately were able to illustrate. I'm wondering if you can talk about.
Thank you. So yes, basically there are kind of a few steps. The first is very much about defining the purpose of the project. So the purpose includes financial, it includes, and defining, like identifying all the range of wellness outcomes, physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, social, environmental, and financial. How can, the project meet and enhance well-being on those levels. And the third is then to define and design strategies across the various scales of architecture, interior design, landscape, and also the master planning. And then the final is to look at not only the financial outcome, but to evaluate the project. And this is in our white paper, which is soon going to be published, which is going beyond the ROI and really looking at defining the ROW, the return on wellness, and seeing all the areas where you can enhance those dimensions for all stakeholders. So it's not just let's say a developer owner driven, but it's also taking into consideration the inhabitants and the people who are going to work there and the suppliers. And so it's a very holistic, inclusive approach.
But if I may add some, sorry.
Sorry, Valentina, go ahead. I was going to ask you. Go ahead.
I just wanted to add something that is very important as architects, that we really don't sell an image for aesthetics. That's the key thing as well, because we need to start designing, from the materials that are available on that land, and that creates the aesthetic. It's what we've done for the past, 100 years is the opposite, which is what has created the issue. Architects create the image and they're like, go build it. But okay, none of this is available here. It's all chemically made. It doesn't work. Sorry, that's it.
I'd like to thank you. We have to close now.
Yes.
Both for this really very stimulating and thoughtful visionary presentation. Valentina, a question that perhaps we can have a conversation about later, but I was so impressed with what you're doing in the Middle East. And I just wondered what the climate is among investors towards what the receptivity is to wellness architecture. You're obviously doing a number of commissions on this. Would you say there's growing awareness, and we have to just take a half a minute for that?
Yeah, there is definitely growing awareness. When I started 7 years ago, there was zero. So it has grown a lot. It still requires a lot of education. So in a lot of the projects, I go through a huge amount of education and explaining the whys, but it's worth it. And that's how it should be. As architects, we are responsible to educate our clients because it's not their field of work. So we need to tell them, we need to build for health of the earth, for our health, and projects needs to come out from the ground and then they need to go back to the earth. So that's the main thing. So it's education, really.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's growing a lot.
Yeah, I agree with
Thank
that.
you. I think we have to stop and hand over to
Yeah.
Alina to offer thanks and to bring the session to a close.
Well, I really am so grateful that we had this time here together. And having gone through a design briefing and a development project, I can tell you that you are so ahead of the way things are currently being done. It's trying to change, but it's with this type of knowledge, particularly the white paper that's coming out now, that I think will be a tremendous tool for a lot of people to be able to resource. So thank you very much for everyone, and join us next time for our next webinar series in the Mental Wellness Initiative series, and we'll be informing you more of when this will happen next. We have 2 more coming up and a wrap up with Jerry and myself towards the end of the year. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you all. Bye.
Everybody.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Hey, guys.